All right, give it up for Jamal and Noble. So I want to introduce a long-distance runner in the struggle against war. Bob Smith has been with the Brandywine Peace Community fighting against the military-industrial complex for decades, and he's just gonna say a few words.
Go Bob, go! Go Bob, go!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
And we speak of peace and we speak of justice in the same breath, because you cannot have one without the other. No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
No justice!
No peace!
You know, the architect of fascism once said that really fascism is corporatism, because it's the all ceding of power to the state. That's what fascism is, whether it is in terms of an ideology or in terms of a sociopath named Donald J. Trump. And we have to address it as a sociopath. I get a little frustrated because, and I won't say which, sometimes in the Friends meeting I attend, I refer to Donald as a sociopath, and somebody will walk up and say, you know, Robert, he never called himself that. Well, Jeffrey Dahmer never called himself a serial killer. Donald J. Trump is a sociopath, which is another word for fascism. But you know something? We spend too much time talking about Donald Trump. I know we have to get it out of our system, get it out of our crotch, get it out. But we spend too much time. What we need to be talking about is power, and our power in the streets. That is where our power lies. That is democracy. That is democracy. And I'm going to say something I have never said in 50 years of nonviolent resistance, 10 of which were spent in various jails, including federal prisons, and that is, we have to vote. This year, the vote represents a statement of resistance, not a statement of partisanship and that kind of bullshit, but rather a statement of resistance. A statement of resistance. And that is why up in Germantown, every Saturday, we are standing there saying, end white supremacy, resist fascism, oust Trump, oust Trump, oust Trump, vote, vote. And when he refuses to leave, we'll continue. And frankly, even if he does leave, we will continue, because we must topple Trump and then push Biden. Amen. Thank you all very much. And thank you especially to every goddamn one of you young folks.
Let's give it up again for Bob Smith. Sam from RefuseFascism Philly is back, and then we have one more speaker before we get this show on the road.
All right. Give me a Trump Pence out now.
Trump Pence out now!
Trump Pence out now.
Trump Pence out now!
Every city, every town.
Every city, every town!
Trump Pence out now.
Trump Pence out now!
All right, I want to bring some things down a little bit, and I am going to talk about Trump for a little bit. But I want to start with this. It is up to us, all of us here today and all those that we reach out to and unite in the coming days and weeks to stop a fascist America. The Trump-Pence regime is on a collision course with humanity, unleashing violent white supremacy and state terror against black people and protesters. Refusing in advance to accept any electoral loss in November and preparing for far worse against immigrants, black people, women and LGBTQ people, the environment, the people of the world, if they are not stopped. It is not hyperbolic to say the future for billions hangs in the balance. We are millions demanding justice in June and July. We must rise again. The next 60 days must be our time, not Trump's, not his fascist goons. In 4 years, we have watched so much become normalized. And we cannot become inured to the monstrosity. We know that grave, unspeakable crimes have already occurred. That this regime isn't just really bad, but fascist. Yes, fascist. And it imperils the future of humanity. They already have blood on their hands. And this is only the beginning if we don't stop them. We remember the 180,000 people whose lives were stolen by this regime's response to COVID. We fight for Carlos Gregorio Hernandez Vasquez, age 16, Felipe Gomez Alonso, age 8, and Jacqueline Call, age 7, and all the children who died in the custody of CBP. We hold in our hearts the victims of the El Paso shooting, and the Tree of Life Synagogue victims, and James Scurlock, Sean Monterosa, Garrett Foster, Joseph Rosenbaum, Anthony Huber, all protesters killed this summer or spring. As many as 20 protesters have been killed. Since May, over 50 incidents of cars being weaponized, plowing into protests. The Trump-Pence regime is moving fast to consolidate fascist rule and hammer in a nightmare for humanity. Police gun down black and brown people. The Trump-Pence regime backs the police, sends paramilitary forces against the people, and calls for racist thugs to exact vengeance against the people. His Second Amendment people, unvarnished white supremacy. And this is still the beginning. Portland and Kenosha are a trailer of Trump's second term. Trump visited Kenosha, where the police shot Jacob Blake 7 times in front of his kids, where Kyle Rittenhouse, a Trump supporter, shot and killed 2 protesters. He defended the murderer. He didn't visit to talk to the family of Jacob Blake or the families of those Kyle shot and killed. He didn't cry crocodile tears. He didn't go to talk to those that hunger for justice. He went to survey property damage. Are we all right with that? No! He went to preach law and order, which really is vengeance and violence, and threats against black people and people standing up for black lives. He went there to encourage police terror, fascist thugs, and white supremacy. He is not just really bad. He's a genocidal racist. He cannot be allowed a second term. We cannot allow him. Bill Barr, who Jamal was talking about earlier. Bill Barr, the most powerful lawyer in the country, applauding extrajudicial violence, murder of political opponents. He said, our cities are safer with this violent agitator removed. This fascist regime must be removed. With the biggest white supremacists in the White House, backed by the most vicious police, can anyone really think the fight for Black lives and the fight to remove this fascist regime are separate issues? The genocidal racist Donald Trump hates Black people and everybody who is not white, English-speaking, Christian American. If he could, he would kill off a whole lot of them and put many of them in jail for the rest of his life, or drive them out of the country. You know, his niece, Mary Trump, recently said, I can only imagine the envy with which Donald Trump watched the cop killing George Floyd. I can only imagine Donald wishes it had been his knee on Floyd's neck. Just think about that. That's his niece. Think about that. What do you think Trump will do if he can get his knee even more firmly on the necks of Black, brown, and indigenous people? The sharpness of this situation contains its opposite. There are millions who refuse to allow this regime to remain in power and exact revenge on Black people and those who rise with them for justice. Millions who refuse to allow trans lives to be erased and women to be slammed back to the dark ages, who refuse to stand aside as immigrants are terrorized and demonized, who refuse to have science, truth, the rule of law, the separation of powers, and the right to dissent be eviscerated, who refuse to live under the open terroristic dictatorship that is a fascist America, who refuse to accept Trump, Pence in power. Now, some people probably told you when you told them you were coming out to protest that you should just sit back and wait for November. And I'm so glad that you didn't listen to them. Because Trump is stealing the election now. He's putting loyalists in positions of power now. Cops emboldened by Trump are terrorizing people now. Fascist thugs are running amok now. What are we going to do? What are you going to do about it? When Trump's MAGA fascist thugs try to intimidate people from voting, and Trump tries to steal the election by claiming it's fraudulent and then refuses to leave, what difference would mass sustained nonviolent protest make? He's already advocating that people violate law and vote twice for the purpose of undermining and invalidating the 2020 elections. And it's another reason why we need to be in the streets now. If people are in the streets every day by October, if every attempt by the regime to subvert the election, to repress protests, to implement new fascist measures are met with growing numbers demanding Trump Pence out now in non-violent protests, we could force a different political equation going into November, constraining Trump's ability to steal the election or postpone it. And we would already be mobilized if he did so on election day. Today, we are telling the world, we are uniting, we are organizing, we are determined, we are preparing to struggle with all we've got, starting now and not stopping until the Trump-Pence regime is driven from power and this whole regime's program is brought to a halt. Humanity all over the world and the survival of the it be said, when facing an American fascism in the most powerful country in history, armed with nuclear weapons which it brandishes, that people here could not put aside their differences to stop a great harm? Or will this time history tell a story of people that rose as many acting together and stopping a great harm? So, going forward from today, we're not over. We're not over. This is the beginning. The protest isn't over. But I want to say this now. Before you leave, before we march even, make sure that you get a stack from this sister over here with the green backpack that you see a palm card. Make sure you find out where the next meeting is. Make sure you find out where the next protest is. Make sure that you put a donation in the bucket and you get a stack of stickers, because you're now recruited to bring forward the millions that it's going to take to oust this regime. We're starting 60 days and we are so glad that you are a part of it. Trump, Pence?
I want to introduce Sonia Rosen next, who's a local professor who specializes in urban education and youth organizing. Let's give a warm welcome for Sonia Rosen.
I was told to use everything. Is that a metaphor? So I come to you today as an Arab American, as a woman, as a mother of 3 children, and I come to you scared shitless. And I think all of us should be scared shitless right now. I have spent my life watching this country bomb and occupy people who look like me and who are like me and who come from heritages that are similar to mine. I have watched for the last 30 years the U.S. government occupying people like me. I have watched them destroying us. I have watched them creating racist portrayals of us in order to justify that occupation. And yet I have never been scared as much as I am today and right now in our world. Because this administration is not just occupying and bombing people. This administration is not simply oppressing people and giving jobs to rich cronies. This administration is trying to create a world in which we cannot do this. We cannot protest. I was out in the streets 20 years ago. I'm 42 now, so it's most of my life I've been being out in the streets doing something. And I've been out in the streets protesting, knowing that I have a right to express my voice and say, don't kill people like me, don't murder black people, don't murder indigenous people. And right now, I am scared that we are on the verge of a world where we cannot do this anymore. And that is very, very concerning. That is the thing we should be fighting for right now. Not for one election, not for one issue that we care about, but to ensure that we can maintain a world in which all of us can use our voices to resist fascism and resist the horrific stuff that we see every day. I'm also a scholar of social movements. I teach about education, but I'm a scholar of social movements. And one thing that I can see very clearly is that we have grassroots activism in the forms of the Black Lives Matter movement. We have grassroots activism in the form of indigenous people fighting to shut down pipelines. We have grassroots activism in the form of fighting the Trump and Pence administration, in the form of fighting for trans people, in the form of fighting for all kinds of issues that affect the most vulnerable people in our society. And we are seeing wealthy people invest in what we call astroturf activism. Astroturf activism is when wealthy people go and fund protests that look like grassroots movements, that look like this. But what they are is rich people ensuring that white supremacy continues, and that white people who are very scared to lose what they might lose if if black people and other people of color rise up, woo, that those people are going to, that they will come out in the streets and be mobilized to fight for the rich, right? When we see people fighting against masks, when we see people showing up at Black Lives Matter protests with guns and shooting protesters, those are people who are mobilized by the rich. This is a world that we do not want to continue. We need to fight against AstroTurf activism and use our grassroots voices to shut that down. Sorry. White people, I call on you right now to bring in your own. Talk to your relatives who are scared of racial justice. Talk to them and tell them how important it is to fight against the Trump regime. Talk to them and put them at ease and tell them that they won't lose anything if we have an egalitarian society. This is scary. This is a scary moment in our world. And the stakes are high. We can come out, and this is important work that we're doing right now, coming out here. But we also need to be having conversations with people all the way up to the election and past the election. This is not a matter of polite disagreement. This is not a matter of people simply disagreeing on some neutral, like not very important issues. This is a matter of fighting against a regime that does not see most of us as human. We are not seen as human by these people that are in power right now. Not only do they want power, they don't want us to exist. We are human, and every single person out there who is fighting against this regime needs to see this as a fight for our lives. A friend of mine the other day said that Trump is a bottomless pit of evil. I actually really love that term because every time the man does the thing that I think he's sunk the lowest on, he turns around and then does something even lower. So I thought bottomless pit of evil would be a really good thing to yell. So I'd just like you to join me in saying, Trump is a bottomless pit of evil. Trump is a bottomless pit of evil. Trump is a bottomless pit of evil. He's a bottomless pit of evil. Every time you are thinking, how can I organize to get this guy out of office? Just think to yourself how important that work is, because this man is a bottomless pit of evil. He will not stop. What we are seeing now is nothing compared to what we will see when he is emboldened by a re-election. We all know that, right? So I hope also that everybody who's standing here right now and all the people who care about this will show up after the election too. I hope that you recognize that if we can vote this man out, if we vote Biden in, we have to hold that guy accountable just as strongly as we are holding Trump accountable. These are the same, these are folks who also are emboldened by white supremacy, right? They are fighting for white supremacy just as much as Trump is. They're just not as effective at it, and they're not doing it in such a fascist way, right? But we need to make sure that we are holding them accountable. We are fighting against systems of power, not just one man or two men, right? Not just one regime, not just one administration. We are fighting against systems of power here. But we will not be able to continue the fight against those systems of power if we don't get rid of Trump Pence. So let's just join with a nice chant right before we march, and let's yell, Trump Pence out now! Trump Pence out now! Trump Pence out now!
Trump Pence out now!
Trump Pence out now!
Trump Pence out now!
Get the fuck out of here, you bottomless pit of evil!
Let's give another round of applause for Sonia Rosen. As we get ready to march, grab your stickers, your water bottles, tie your laces. I'm going to I have the honor of bringing up both poets tonight. We have another spoken word artist, Lindo Yes. Give him a round of applause. Follow him on IG at Lindo Yes.
All power to the people.
All power to the people!
All power to the people.
All power to the people!
That felt good. All right, cool. to get into this poem, but I just want to experience a little bit of joy in this moment, because joy can be a form of resistance. Oh, man. Before I get into this poem, I want to say one thing, and I want to ask a question. Who hung Alan McGill at the South Philly playground? Who hung Alan McGill at the South Philly playground?
Yeah.
I'm grateful every morning I don't wake up a hashtag. A trending topic of tragedy. A black and brown body outlined in white, red blood, water, and concrete because it shades of blue. White lives defining how black lives matter, my God. There's a war on colors. Ever since we've been coloring in coloring books, they've been booking colors in books of obituaries. You should be worried. Because even those that survived those years of their life in beige and gray boxes with no windows, when they come out, you can barely see the souls through their windows. They look lost. And I have lost myself in tears, found myself here crying, because I haven't yet grieved over Trayvon. He looked so much like me when I saw him. I thought I died. Became a hashtag in the morning, a trending topic of tragedy. A black and brown body outlined in white, red blood, water, and concrete because of shades of blue. White lives are finding how black lives matter, my God. Let's raise sons like morning. Too many sons we mourning. Too many raises in the sun. Let's raise sons like morning. Too many sons we mourning. My God, please don't let me be a hashtag in the morning. I just want to say two statements before we go on this march. Thank you. James Baldwin wrote an excellent when he talks about the Holy Ghost of America. And when he speaks of the Holy Ghost of America, he talks about how white people cannot see outside of their experiences to recognize others. And they hold on to that white experience so much, it allows for the injustice that goes on in America that hurts all others. Bree Newsom said, if you get upset by the protests, by the looting, by the riots, and you think to yourself, maybe we shouldn't defund the police, maybe we shouldn't abolish the police. Well, you are the same type of folks that got upset when they burned the cotton fields, and you said maybe we shouldn't abolish slavery, because they just burned the cotton fields. So if you hold on to your whiteness so much that you want to see the injustice of so many others, you need to really reassess. That's it. So what we gonna do now? We're gonna take it to the street, fuck the police, right? So what we can all do, we can get up and start making a little, you know what I mean, social distance, you know what I mean, over here. That would be lovely, yo. That would be really good. So like right over here, when you see Sam at with the posters, right there on that nice pathway to the corner. Yes, right over here, right? I got this. I'm doing this. All right, cool, I'm good. Look at us. Look how beautiful we are. Give yourself a round of applause. Y'all looking nice. We walking over there. We saying fuck the system.
You gotta make sure people know you're out.
If you see anything that looks like it shouldn't be left, somebody's got a phone on the ground, somebody's got a reusable water bottle. You see,
We got a black backpack. Jordan backpack.
Jordan backpack.
Just follow right behind the traffic.
They might have lost the world on today. Every town, Trump, Pence, out.
Every city, Trump, Pence. Every city,
Every town. Trump, Pence, out now.
every city, every town.
Trump, Pence, out now.
Every city, every town.
Trump, Pence, out now.
Every city, every town.
Trump, Pence, out now.
Every city, every town.
Trump, Pence, out now.
All right, are we good? Make sure you got a poster.
Trump, Pence out now!
Trump, Pence, out now.
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 Right fucking now.
Right fucking now.
Right fucking now.
Right fucking now.
Trump, Pence, out now.
Trump, Pence, out now.
Trump, Pence, out now.
Trump, Pence, out now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
When?
Now.
When?
Now.
Trump, Pence, out now.
Trump, Pence, out now.
Black Lives Matter. 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 If all lives matter, then let's prove it. If all lives matter, if all lives matter, if all lives matter, if all lives matter, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, no racist, police, Black Lives Matter, 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 no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, no justice, no peace, no racist, police.
Silence is complicity.
Which side is supremacy? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Silence is complicity. Which side is supremacy? Which side are you on? Silence is complicity.
Excuse me.
Which side are you on? Trump, Pence, out now. Trump, Pence, out now. Trump, Pence, out now. Trump, Pence, out now. Trump, Pence,
Trump Pence out now!
Hey man, how's it going? Seen you again.
Trump Pence out now! Trump Pence out now! Jump! Trump Pence out now! 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 Jump one time! Jump two times! Trump Pence out now! Trump Pence out now! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter! Say his name! Say his name! George Floyd! Say his name! George Floyd! Say his name! George Floyd! Say her name! Breonna Taylor! 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 Say his name! George Floyd! Say his name! George Floyd! Say his name! George Floyd! I appreciate that everyone doesn't even know which name to say anymore when we say his name. Because there was already too many, but there's been so many even since George Floyd. So I think that we're ready to go. So we're gonna make this happen when hands is up.
All right, all right. Are we ready to march? I can't hear you, Philly. Are we ready to march? We gotta tell Philly what's going on here, because some folks are walking by and they don't know what we're about. So fist up. Oh, it's good to see you, sister. I'm glad you came back. Fist up. We pledge that we will not stand aside. While there is still a chance. Sorry, y'all. Coordination. We're going to try this one more time. If you are a sibling with a phone that has room on it, if you can afford it and add apple stuff, it might be lovely. We're going to try it again. Fist up. We pledge that we will not stand aside. While there is still a chance. To stop a regime. That imperils humanity. And the earth itself. 4 more months. 4 more years. The hour is late. The bell tolls. If we wait, we could lose the world. This must be our time. Not Trump. Not his fascist goons. We won't be collaborators. On a march to genocide. We won't hand the future to scorchers of the planet. We will not rest until this fascist regime is driven from power. In the name of humanity, we refuse to accept a fascist America. We pledge to show the world that we rose. Acting together to change the course of history. We will stay in the streets. Bring others with us. And we will not stop. Until this demand is won. Trump Pence out now.
Trump Pence out now!
Trump Pence out now.
Trump Pence out now!
Trump Pence out now.
Trump Pence out now!
All right, now we can march, y'all. Trump loves cops.
Trump loves cops.
Hell no.
Hell no.
They all gotta go.
They all gotta go.
Cops love Trump.
Cops love Trump.
Trump loves cops.
Trump loves cops.
Hell no.
Hell no.
They all gotta go.
They all gotta go.
We gotta put it together.
Put it
Cops love
together.
Trump. Trump loves cops. Hell no. They all gotta go. Cops love Trump. Trump loves cops. Hell no. They all gotta go. Cops love Trump. Trump loves cops. Hell no.
They all gotta go.
Hell no.
They all gotta go.
Hell no.
They all gotta go.
All right. We're going to do the one that Kayuki and Mark were teaching earlier. Silence is complicity with white supremacy. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Silence is complicity with white supremacy. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Silence is complicity with white supremacy.
Which side are you on? Which side are you on?
Silence is complicity with white supremacy. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Silence is complicity with white supremacy. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Silence is complicity with white supremacy. Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Trump has out now. Trump has out now. Trump has out now. Trump has out now. Trump has out now.
Trump has out now.
Trump has out now.
Trump has out now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right now.
Right the fuck now.
Right the fuck now.
Right the fuck now.
Right the fuck now.
Trump has out now. Trump has out now. Trump has out now. Trump has out now. Trump has out now. Right now.
I gotta get down from this thing. Okay. Oh.